Alexa Creed is a dynamic adult performer and content creator who challenges conventional narratives around sex and intimacy. Known for her raw authenticity and innovative storytelling, Alexa crafts a space where vulnerability meets empowerment, celebrating the full spectrum of sexual expression. Her work truly is a fusion of art and erotica, inviting audiences to rethink what it means to experience and express desire. Through a commitment to inclusivity, body positivity, and honest exploration, Alexa's projects are not just performances, they're invitations to embrace our true selves and to see sexuality as an art form that fosters connection and liberation. This conversation will touch on sex, sexuality, pornography. The discussion will be respectful and focused on being curious as opposed to judgmental. However, you may want to be careful playing this one loud if you have the kids in the backseat of the car. So, Alexa, thank you so much for joining us today from Romania. You're very, very welcome. I want to just start by understanding a little bit about you. What were your formative years like? What sort of person were you growing up?
Thank you very much for having me. Um, that's a very cute question to ask because my childhood was very, very happy. Um, my mom and dad always had been very into growing a girl that knows what she wants. And well, I kind of felt the need to explore always new perspectives that maybe other people weren't so into exploring. Thankfully, to what my mom and dad did, like allowing me to grow in a safe space. Um, so basically, after I finished my degree in computer science and cartography, I had two faculties at the same time. I decided that I want to dive into the adult industry, and they were aware of it, and they were okay with it.
So, after doing those degrees that I'm sure took a huge amount of work, and there's a huge amount of work available, particularly in the computer industry. How do you discover the adult industry, and what made you want to take the step into exploring whether it was something for you?
Well, I discovered it while I was going to work. Actually, I was working for a company in the United States, a company that was relying on cell phones and internet connection and so on.
Mhm.
And I was on the fraud department, trying to call customers who were answering questions about their accounts because we were foreseeing that they don't get fraud on their account. But some customers can be rather, um, I don't know, a bit too overwhelmed by some of the questions, and they were kind of greedy and rude with what we were telling them. So one day I was feeling rather, I don't know, not myself, because I didn't like the job I was doing at the point, although it was paying for my college and helping me get over the college years. And at the subway, I was seeing a commercial that was promoting a studio here in Romania because I started with a studio, an agency. And then I decided to dive into this to see what it is about. And I went to an interview, and then it all started. That's how I found about the adult industry. And to be honest, I never ever have a thought about, I don't know, regretting it or anything like that.
Was it what you expected when you went to that first interview and you went from the sort of subway sign to to actually being involved? Was it what you thought it was going to be?
Actually, I was surprised because it was more professional than
Mhm.
I was thought it is. I don't know if you have this idea in the West, but here in the East, because we were under communism and so on, uh, things like adult industry was seen as something behind closed doors and maybe, I don't know, something illegitimate, but it's all legal, thankfully. And yeah, I was quite surprised because the studios here operate like corporations, like
Mhm.
big commercial societies where there are so many employees, staff that helps the models go for further with their career. You can also start independently, which I am doing like right now because I stopped working with the studio. But you can also have a studio or an agency working with you, and then you get paid by commission.
It's very interesting, isn't it? 'Cause I think a lot of people think it's a very not illegal. It's just something that you wouldn't necessarily come across, not very business focused. But when you look at the size of the industry, you look at something, some of the big porn sites, and the fact they get billions of views a month. You look at how OnlyFans has increased sort of massively, and you look at how, thankfully, there seem to be more opportunities now for creators to own what they're doing. And I think historically it was maybe people got into the industry and they basically were dictated to by the studios as to what they had to do. But you seem to be a really good example, and your website, I'll put a link in the notes, is really interesting in terms of how you really seem to own what you're doing. And how did you how did you create the business knowledge and the approach that you've taken? Because it is very business focused and it's very clear, and what you offer is, I think, is different to a lot of people. So how did you become so business minded and so organized?
Well, this is who I am at the core. Like, I am so perfectionist. I always strive to get the best results out of
Mhm.
something, and I didn't want to just get in the industry and be a mediocre in it. I wanted to affirm myself, to try to be more than the medium. So I decided to look at it from a business point of view,
Mhm.
to try to elaborate it in different ways, to start a blog, to cover the video making part, the content subscription platform, since you mentioned OnlyFans, camming itself. I'm trying to not put all my apples into one basket, but to
Mhm.
have more trees that grow me apples. So this is why I'm striving all the time to get the best products from the videos I make, the
Mhm.
website that I've created. Although I do need a team, I have to admit that. Sometimes the work that I do takes me even 12, 14 hours a day. Like, camming is about 5, 6 hours, so admin
Right.
work 2, 3 hours, video recordings another 2, 3 hours, and it can be really tiring at some point. So yeah, I would need a team to get some of the overload off my back.
Mhm.
But for now, I'm just myself, and I'm trying to do my best with it. I do miss the agency studio days, but I did feel like I needed to get out of that because I could not reach my full potential while working with an agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of your ideas and your both visual and written, very, very creative. And I just wonder, where does the creativity come from? Because sometimes you see adult content and it's very what's the right word?
Dull.
Well, it is a little bit. There's no story, there's no theme. It's very much about the act, and the act, or the act is the act, really. But what yours seems very creative and very different, whether it's your writing or your performance. Yeah, where does the creativity come from?
I think I've inherited my mom.
Mhm.
Ever since I was little, she always tried to push me towards things that were creatives. Like, she enlisted me to a painting module, or she made me have English classes because I was into reading a lot, and so she wanted me to learn a second language and to
Mhm.
be able to find more about the world. I also loved my Romanian teacher, which is not with us anymore. He died. He always pushed me towards my creativity skills and always admired my writings in school. Yeah, I think there were some mentors there that kind of guided me towards being more creative and thinking a bit outside of the box. I don't always do it. I sometimes feel like I'm too comfortable in my own skin and prefer to remain there. But I do try to push myself and get out of the comfort zone when I feel like I'm staying there too much.
No, I think your mentors would be very proud. I think you are very creative. I think your stories and what you do, I think absolutely. So no, you shouldn't say you're not. One of the things that I think is interesting, as particularly about your content, is that you encourage very open dialogue about desire and vulnerability, particularly in men. I think a lot of men perhaps want to put on or do put on a front and don't want to be vulnerable. And I think you do have a dominatrix approach to some of the work that you do. And I just wondered, how do you create a place where men feel safe being vulnerable?
The main thing is that I always try to tell them to forget about the masks they are wearing in society. Like with me, they don't need them. They just let they just have to let themselves be who they are, and that's how I somehow connect on a deeper level, because there is this need inside of every each and one of us to purely explore who we are. And unfortunately society is very judgmental, especially these days. Like we are seeing what is happening around the globe with the elections everywhere and so on. People just want to be right, but they don't want to express what's right within them. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
No, absolutely, 100%. I
Yeah,
do.
and I feel like if we just let a bit of our masks go away and try to look inside of us, we will find out that what we are telling on the mouth, it's not exactly what we actually feel inside. And
Mm.
this helps me being more empathetic towards my members, and they feel it like they connect with me at a different level. And I guess my sessions start with a bit of understanding each other. What are their needs? What are my needs? I always tell them that I like the people that I interact with. I like to have them evolve into their better version of themselves, especially from a dominatrix point of view, because in the end, as a dominatrix, you hold the power. Like they are giving it to you willingly, in a safe, sane, and consensual space. And basically you can mold them into having what they need to be better, to be what they what their potential is.
I like that. I think a lot of time people need somebody else to get them to that place. Really, I think, like I say, they've been through childhood and everything that they've read and everything they've watched sort of creates a particular view of masculinity and what it means
Exactly.
to be a man. And I think having somebody that helps people see that actually this is a part of their life that they should explore, that exploring this part of their life will help other parts of their life, will stop them feeling repressed or yeah, or stigmatized. I think it's really interesting. And is that something that comes very naturally to you?
Yeah, I'm very into psychology. I actually was thinking to get also a diploma in psychology.
Mm.
Maybe, I don't know, when I'm
When you
over
have time.
over 50, I might dive into that and stop the sexual part, the adult part. But for now, I really like what I'm doing, and I feel like I can be the psychological part of a dominatrix who helps people understand what they want better. Um, Even if the stigma is very, very powerful, if we get to the inner core within ourselves, I think we can liberate the true feelings we have inside. Now, I don't think that we should liberate everything. Like there are people who have um, I don't know, basically things that aren't okay, like whew, sorry, incest
Yeah.
fantasies and so on. I don't agree with unlocking everything, because I think we should still have what it takes to remain within the safe, sane, and consensual boundaries.
Mm. And you talked about helping people understand who they truly are and what they truly desire. And do you do you know who you truly are and what you truly desire? Does it help you as well?
Uh, I wasn't always a dominatrix. Like, this is something I found in recent years. I think I
Mhm.
have 2 years since going this path. At first, I was more a vanilla cam girl, but I was still going deep into what their needs and desires were, because I just like to unpeel people in
Yeah.
general, not only on cam. Or I like to try to see what they actually want.
Mhm.
I've been like this always. Um, and since I realized that the dominatrix part would actually help me get more into this, I kind of switched the whole narrative and adapted my persona online with who I actually am. And this is how I got here, I think. Like, and yeah, this makes my needs and desires more available to everyone who gets to know me.
Why do you think sexuality there isn't anything other than what people would think of, and I hate the word, as being normal? Why do you think it is stigmatized? Because we there's so many things that we can be and we can try and we can do and all those things be, but it's very rare you hear somebody talk about it. I mean, it's very. I would imagine that maybe some of the people you work with, they wouldn't go into work the next day and say, "Oh, I had a really amazing session with Alexa, my dominatrix, last night." You wouldn't talk about it. Why do you think sexuality is so stigmatized?
Well, it always has been. Like,
Yeah.
we are living times that we are not stigmatizing it that much anymore. But I think religion plays a very important part in this, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I have nothing against religion. Everyone is okay to believe in whatever they feel they should believe in.
Mhm.
But I do think that overly putting religion into our natural way of being, essentially, because this is who we are. We are people. We are human. The humankind needs to connect sexually with one another in order to procreate. And it's not only about the act itself, it's about mental um, the mental challenge of being together with each other, because in the end we are not just mammals. We are not just animals. We
Mhm.
connect, we can actually feel. There needs to be an empathy there before going into the act itself. So I think people should just stop judging based on religious beliefs and just see it as a natural act of becoming our best versions of ourselves and procreating, giving our um, way of being to the next generations. This is very important, I think.
It is. Do you think we are naturally designed to be monogamous?
This is a choice to me, I think.
Mhm.
I don't think nature had inclined for us to be monogamous, because if we take the Darwinian theory of evolution, we need to mate with the best partner
Yeah.
in order to have the best version of a child that could come into life.
Mhm.
But I think being monogamous is a choice that we should constantly work on if we choose monogamy. And we, of course, should tell the other person we are with our intentions. Like, if we feel we cannot do it, we should be honest about it.
Yeah.
If we want to work on doing it, then we should always work on doing it and not have it slip by when we feel like we've encountered the best alternative. I don't know. For me, it was an option to be monogamous, and I've always been monogamous in my relationships.
Mhm. I think it's a really interesting topic, and I talked to some psychologists about it, and they were sort of talking about there's a difference between consensual non-monogamy and cheating. Some people will say, "No, I can't be monogamous." What you're saying is you're cheating, as opposed to the two of you discussing it and yeah, understanding it. And again, it's something that people need to talk about more. But back to the religious point, I do totally agree. I think a lot of it is religion, and it is society's supposed standards.
Yeah.
But sadly, a lot of people that profess to be very religious and to follow the teachings, etc. They're sometimes the people that are, yeah, the least people that should be judging anybody else. I think.
Yeah, I think in general we have to let this judgmental side apart, and to think outside of the box a bit, because not everyone is like we are. Like, what is chaos for the
Yeah.
fly is normal for the spider to be there and do what does best. Um,
Mm.
you mentioned something earlier about the psychologist
Hmm.
saying that this
Come on.
being sexually okay with
Hmm.
everything is something that I think I forgot how you phrased it, but I do agree with the psychologist. Like, we need to dive more into what our needs are and express them, because if we don't express them, then the trauma appears inside, and basically we start developing disorders, issues, and so on, because there is a lot of unclaimed frustration in there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you can be in a relationship or married to a person for 10, 20, 30 years, and you might never really have talked about what you enjoy or what you like or what physical intimacy means to you. And then people, rather than have a discussion with their partner that they might have had children with, they've been through so many difficult things with them, rather than have a discussion with them, they think a solution is to meet somebody in a hotel bar or to cheat or whatever. It seems very odd that we find it so hard to just talk about what we like and don't like, have those discussions. I think people are, yeah, even with somebody we know intimately, it's odd that we find it hard to have that discussion.
Yeah, I think it's also about being in a safe space. Like, we feel like
Yeah.
we are not understood, maybe.
Hmm.
This goes back to what we were saying earlier. But yes, I think we should choose communication even though it feels uncomfortable. We need to address what we feel, and we need to let know the other person that we might just not feel okay with what's happening right now. And it's
Yeah.
okay. Like, we shouldn't be necessarily blamed for it, but we should find the ways to work together to find solutions.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the last thing you want is your partner to recoil or be upset by what you're saying, and it is just a conversation. But I think part of it is that I think pornography in particular has changed a huge amount in the last generation. So when I was a teenager, and you will laugh now. So pornography literally was a photograph torn from a Playboy magazine or whatever that's passed around the schoolyard. That was, oh my goodness, there's a picture of a naked lady. Oh my god, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. But teenagers now, it's very different. They can go online wherever they are on their phone, and they can experience incredibly extreme pornography. And some people like that, some people don't. And I don't have an issue with it. I think the issue is that people perhaps come to that content without really understanding what a relationship is, without understanding what consent is all about. And I think it creates difficult expectations. So I have friends of mine that date that are younger than me. They say there's a lot of people assume that all women want to be choked, that all women don't have any hair anywhere, that all women want to have anal sex, all women want to be with three or four partners. But we know that isn't true, and that's one of the challenges, I think, is how we help people understand consent and expectation. I think that's one of the challenges, and yeah, I just wondered how you would help somebody talk about pornography to their to their child or to their younger siblings or whatever. Yeah, to explain that that isn't real life in a way, that that is fiction as such. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I think this is a parent issue actually.
Yeah.
Like parents don't want to have these heavy conversations. They run away from it. So
Yeah.
then the teenager tries to find answers somewhere else, and then the parents blame the teenager. Why did you go there, and why did
Yeah.
you look at porn? Yes, I think the responsibility comes from having the parents involved within the household and all their children. And I also would love to see in schools that they teach sexual education. This would be very, very important for teenagers to actually understand what sex education is. Um, Although I've seen a lot of people complain that this shouldn't be taught in schools. I don't know, and I don't understand why. They should feel um, a safe place to express themselves in. And if you put a course of sex education in schools, they can ask questions and they can get answers. Whereas if you don't and keep them in a black hole where they go find answers on their own, well, then what are we expecting? This
Yeah.
is what we see. Children and teenagers going to all sorts of websites, finding the choking part, the threesome part, the foursome, the group, and then they start having unrealistic expectations. I would also agree that us performers, like the ones that we are in the adult industry, we should have maybe disclaimers, maybe have a blog where we can educate the younger generations that sex is and has to be safe, sane and consensual. Like the
Mm,
other partner you are with has to agree and has to like the things you want to do to him.
yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And I think and your content isn't doesn't fall into that realm where it's unrealistic. It's sort of naturalistic, and I think it's very beautiful in many ways. And I think for yeah, I think schools, certainly in the UK and some places, schools have sex education, but a lot of the time it is about how to put a condom on, what safe sex is, but that's as far as it goes. It's very much almost a medical education, as opposed to yeah having somebody there that will answer questions. Almost that is it okay that can I, should I, how do we, and yeah, that discussion about consent and trying something, stopping when somebody says stop, all those things are so important because, as you say, teenagers, or all of us, if we don't know an answer, we go online. There's always an answer there. It might not be the answer we're looking for, and I think because a lot of the big porn aggregators, somebody like Pornhub gets 3 billion views a month, which is extraordinary. But it
It's
only shows really one type of content. But a lot of content that's much more realistic. A lot of women directors, content made for women is much more natural and realistic. I think yeah. But naturally, people will go to look online for answers, or ask their friends. So as a parent, as a teacher, as a guide, it should be important we have that discussion because it is something that you hope is going to help women, men, teenagers, youngsters in the future. Because you want people to be responsible and good lovers, really. You want people to have good sex. Sexual wellness is a really important thing, I think. 'Cause we live a long life, and a life of poor sex isn't great, really. I don't think. Yeah, no, I agree about being able to communicate is super important.
Yeah, and basically, if the parents take care of this, they will help the future adults grow within limits and know that if someone doesn't want to do something, they will just have to stop. Then we will discontinue so much abuse everywhere in the world and so on. So
Yeah,
basically, everything starts with parenting, if you
it
ask me.
does. It really does. Yeah, and whether that's actually parenting from the parent or it's it's an aunt or an uncle or somebody else in the family, an older cousin or schools. I do think that whole thing about yeah, consent, and because there's still a huge amount of abuse that happens, a huge amount of trauma that happens, and 99.9% is to women from men. And I don't know whether that's a lack of understanding on the men's part, or sometimes women being finding it difficult to say no or to say stop. It's very, very hard, but it is the men that need to step up to own the responsibility and to do the right thing, really, because we do have far, far too much
Yeah,
abuse, though, which is terrible.
and to be honest, I wouldn't put the blame on women, although
Not
they
at all.
might have a bit of a blame because they don't run away from it. But at some point, you can get into the Stockholm syndrome and just
Absolutely.
go with the abuser and fall in love with him. But I think that men should just step up to being the better version of themselves in the end, and stop using physical force against someone who is way less forceful than you are. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is really
It's sad.
important.
We had I think it was in Romania. We had the Tate brothers.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
We
so they've just gone back to the US, and
They got a dispense from the US.
yeah, it's fairly horrifying how many men bought into that view that men are being put down and men should be the dominant partner, etc. So it's I don't know whether men were looking for that or it's yeah, and that's people that haven't had an education, the people that are buying without that haven't listened, that haven't learned, that they hear something that plays on their weaknesses, and people like the Tate brothers and others will make money from people that believe they're being hard done by. It's
Yeah,
just not the way society should be.
unfortunately, they do have a large following, and they are making teenagers feel like they have to be very, very alpha in order to have
Yeah,
the woman they want.
yeah,
I definitely don't agree with this. Um, I think it's the responsibility of mothers to teach their children empathy, because you cannot have a father teach empathy. Usually the male part doesn't have as much empathy as the
mm,
mother does.
yeah.
And the mothers forget that they need to teach their children the empathy part. And this is the main issue with society today.
I'm so glad you said that because I agree so much. I mean, we saw in the last week discussions, arguments, fight in the White House, and what's happening with Ukraine, and what's happening with Russia, and what's happening with the US. And I think all of that is about people not being able to feel what other people are feeling or to experience what other people are experiencing.
Exactly.
And to sort of sit there and see it from so far away without being empathic or showing empathy. I truly think that if we had more empathy, the world would be a much it
Much
sounds
better.
simple, a much better place. It
Exactly.
really, really would be. Empathy for how people think and how they feel and all those things. We wouldn't see it as people being other, and that's the challenge. I think a lot of people particularly in the Western world, see parts of the world that are less economically developed or more challenged as being other, as being different. But we really, really aren't. We are far more similar than we are different. And
Yeah.
so agree that empathy is sadly missing in lots of people.
I agree. If I was with power in the world, I would actually try to gather all of us in one complex globe, functioning. I don't know. You can call it government. I don't think government is necessarily the perfect word, but I would like us to unite as a planet. Like, we are living on the same planet. Why do we have
Yeah.
to fight each other?
All you look at Europe and all of our borders are artificial. It's that the Europe is one continent, America's one continent, and we've created these borders through wars and from fighting, and it
Yeah.
isn't. They're so unnatural, really. Would you ever go into politics?
I have actually thought about it with the Romanian elections that happened this year,
Yeah.
last year in December, and this year will happen again because they got
Mhm.
cancelled. But to be honest, people will judge me for what I'm doing, the adult part. I don't think I have the mental power to actually hear all of those things they will say, because they
Yeah.
will say it. Um, and it's something that I would rather protect myself from, not because I couldn't do the work, because I'm sure I could. I'm When I want to do something good, I can do it when I put my mind to it. But I just don't think it's worth my mental sanity to try to make some people understand that the world is not in the best place right now and something needs to change.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, maybe, I don't know, call me greedy, not greedy.
No, I totally understand.
I like my mental sanity a
No,
lot.
no, it makes it so hard, doesn't it? Because you're exactly the sort of person that should be president or leader, because you have that empathy. But it's people that become professional politicians that do the work. And I the same. I've thought about going into politics, but I think I would be, I think, so frustrated by
Yeah,
not being able to make the actual the changes that needed to be made, really, and following those
and
traditions that we've always had.
the thing is, you are not alone. You don't decide alone. You have a full staff and
Um,
all the other counterparts that are going to try to take your throat out
yeah.
because you are trying to do good. So, yeah, when you want to do politics, you have to know that you will have to lose your mental sanity.
And
So,
it's really hard. Isn't it? I always think, well, if you, I wouldn't want to be a politician, but I'd like to be. This sounds terrible. I'd like to be the sort of leader of the world, just decide everything. It sounds terrible, but I think it'd be oh, all the bureaucrats and no, you can't do this, and no, you can't do this, you shouldn't do that, because a lot of us, well, you, me, seems like we know what the right things are to do, but all those other things getting all those self interests and lobby groups and big corporations, whether it be big pharmacy or the arms industry or the alcohol industry, whatever, they all have such a big influence. So no, I totally agree. I think our mental sanity is more important. I think.
yeah, and I don't know, we will still have some time. I mean, maybe not hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years,
Yeah.
until we reach the capacity of letting go of our individual needs to go for the greater good. I don't know if you know the movie Moon.
Yes.
Roland Emmerich was the one who made it.
Yep.
Yeah, they are talking there that the humanity in the end ceased fire and everything was peaceful, and then the AI wanted to kill them.
Yes. I know you get away from one trauma to find another, really.
Yeah.
Um, sorry, we went off track there a little bit. So one of the things I really like in your projects is you talk a lot about body positivity and people embracing the best version of themselves without having to necessarily change who they are, if that makes sense. And I wonder about the importance of self acceptance and people feeling good about themselves, and why that's so important.
Yeah, I don't think you should change for what the other people want you to change for, but what you want to change to make you feel good about the changes you've made.
Yeah.
Uh, to me, it has always been a very important thing, for example, to go to the gym, eat healthy, but not because it's a standard, but because it makes me feel good. And when I'm a bit away from that path, I just feel bad. I don't like how I feel. So I return back to my usual path and then I feel good again. And so I try to teach people that they should choose whatever makes them feel good. If if eating fries all day makes you feel good, then do it. But I'm not sure it will, because if you check your blood analysis and you see that it makes you feel bad on the inside, then you have to change some of the habits you are having that are bad for you. So basically, you don't need to change the core values you have. You have to keep those core values and adapt who you are at this point to who you want to become in the future through progress and the changes and the things that you can implement from one week to another. It doesn't have to be overnight. You just have to do progress, to have progress.
I think that's really important. I think one of the things you said is super important is that we have to do things for ourselves. I think if your partner's saying to you, "Oh, you've put on some kilos, you should go to the gym," or "Oh, you don't exercise enough," or all those things, you might make the change for that person, whether it's stop drinking, start smoking, whatever. But that isn't long lasting because you're not invested. You've got to decide for yourself. And I smoked for a long time when I was, well, not a long time, when I was 18 to 30, I guess. And people will always say you shouldn't smoke. But it's only when I decided to stop smoking that I could stop smoking. And I haven't had a cigarette now for 20 years, more than 20 years. But it was only ever going to happen if I decided to. And the same with whatever we want to do, whether it's I've got to decide to go to the gym or I've got to decide to drink less, whatever. Somebody else persuading you doesn't have the same power, it seems to me.
It doesn't, and you actually can take it personal.
Yeah, absolutely.
uh, Change has to be something you feel within yourself, to realize that the things you are doing right now are not necessarily the best things for you. You can have some inputs from outside that maybe go into your head, and you start realizing, I might just change that about me, but
Yeah,
it has to come from within yourself.
definitely. How do you balance your on-screen persona and your personal identity to make sure that both remain authentic and you know where you are? Is there a do you sort of when you're not talking to people or on the camera or whatever, do you sort of switch off and right, okay, now it's Alexa version A or Alexa version B, or is there such a close similarity? What? Yeah. How do you keep something to yourself? How do you keep your personal life?
Um, well, I'm essentially the same person online and offline. That's why I kept my real name as my first stage name. Alexa is
Okay.
the short form from Alexandra, which is my real name.
Okay.
Um, I've never liked lying or going into developing a story behind my persona. I preferred to keep it real, to essentially tell them what it is like to be me. I don't always tell everyone everything that happens in my life, because that wouldn't make my personal life personal anymore. But
Yeah.
I do try to let them know who I really am when I just go outside of the cam and they don't see me anymore. I think keeping a balance between what you need to let know and what you don't is the key to being safe and sane as a cam model and adult performer. You
Mm.
just have to find that balance. Of course, there are some, I don't know, maybe other models that like to find a story that suits them better, and then they just assume that persona fully. But I don't know, I find that difficult because I forget what I say easily. So I prefer to keep it real.
Yeah, and I think a lot of your work is almost as much about what you say and how you behave as how you look and what you do. And I think a lot of maybe people that create adult content, they go and create a piece, create some content, and it's on to the next one. And it's not. Again, it's they're playing a character. They're not sharing themselves. And I think people that engage with you, I think the value and trust they put into you, I think that's what helps them be vulnerable. So I think if you were playing a character, I think it would soon come clear. So yeah.
Yeah, most probably. Especially since, as I said, I'm not very good with lying. So probably I will forget something I said.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, when you meet somebody or you outside of work, you meet someone in your personal life, and you're going to date them or become a new friend. How long before you tell them about the career you have?
I tell them in the very first second we meet.
Good. What do you say? Hi, I'm Alexa. I'm a dominatrix.
Usually people ask for your socials. I don't have
Okay.
personal socials. I just have my persona socials, which are the same with myself. So basically, I just give them that and they see it. So yeah, that's what happened with most of the people that met me. Um, But I also tell them frankly, like, I'm in the adult industry, I do this and that. Some are curious and go and see what I do, some are not, some don't call me anymore. Yeah. I think people are okay with knowing, because they get to decide whether they want to go further or not. And
Yeah.
you shouldn't keep something like this from them. I mean, I couldn't, I never kept it from my mom and dad. So why would I lie about it with someone I meet who is not, who's a stranger, basically?
Absolutely. I mean, it's nothing. It's an industry. It's a professional industry. It creates work. It brings money in. So absolutely not. Why on earth would you lie, really? You've obviously, with your background in computers, etc., kept very aware of all the changes of things. And how do you manage to stay so innovative and to make sure you're on top of all the things that are happening, all the things that are available now?
To be honest, I don't think I'm such innovative person right now in matter of technology. I still want to get a new camera so bad. But yeah, I try my best to keep on the top with
Hmm.
quality and everything content related. Sometimes life gets in the way and you don't have all the things you need to actually get it to the top notch quality I want to get to. But with time and patience, I think everything is achievable. So yeah, for me, patience is a strong quality that I'm trying to develop. I used to be very driven to buy whatever I found uh,
Yes.
important in the right moment. But now I'm waiting more on buying the things that I don't necessarily need because I want to focus more on other aspects. Um, yeah, I think you are learning, going through the process itself, and then adapt. This is one thing you should always, as a model adult content creator or whatever other industry, I think adaptability. If you can adapt to the situation, then you can create things that are very good.
Definitely. And it's funny because I read somebody asked you a question. So, what's your dream and your plans to achieve it? And you answered, to always be independent. Plans can always be adjusted on the way. The important thing is to have a good mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a valuable answer. And I think if you have bad content, a good camera won't make it better. If you have great content, you can film it on your phone and people will think it's amazing. So I think having the good content, the exciting ideas, the whether they be things you've written or things you're sort of sharing, I think that's the most important thing. You can't improve great content with great equipment. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. And you also need to adapt to however you're feeling, because creativity comes from the inside. And
Yeah.
if you're having a bad day, but you try to switch the perspective and you look at it from the angle that you need to see the bad day going to a good mood, and then developing something you never considered. I don't know, for instance, dominatrix has a bad day, who's going to spoil her to make her day feel better? I don't know, any aspect you want to put in, you
Yeah.
can you can actually go for it.
Mhm.
I
You
think it's
talk about
all.
how important it is to go to the gym and to be physically fit. How do you look after your mental well-being? Are you a meditator? Are you a get out and walk in nature? What is it that helps protect your mental well-being?
For me, meditation never worked. I
No,
tried.
same.
I tried it so many times, but it doesn't work. But I've done psychological therapy, and it has really inspired me because I've learned how our mind works. And I've learned a lot of things about myself, which I never knew existed in the first place. I think that this is the way to keep my sanity there and to be able to feel alive, to always be curious about myself and try to see what triggers me in certain aspects, and to see if I can actually change that, to see if I can respond differently to a situation. So I think we come back to adaptability and being curious about what's going to happen in another circumstance. So maybe you can change the outcome.
Absolutely. I think curiosity is such a wonderful thing. I think when we stop being curious, when we stop wanting to learn, how sad is that when you don't learn something new each day? I think there's
Yeah,
such a gap, really. So you've been very kind with your time. There's two more questions, if that's okay.
sure.
What do you think the future holds? What do you want the future to hold?
The future to hold.
Yeah, for you.
This is something that I think makes me different from the other. I don't think too much in the future, like maybe 1 to 2 years. This is the time frame that I'm setting because I had an accident in 2016 and I saw how fucking short life is. Sorry for the word.
Yeah.
And after that accident, I've always tried to change the way I see life and not focus on the 5 years term, 10 years term, 20 years term. Although I do have some investments for that time, but I don't focus all of my wealth into them.
Mhm.
I just put, I don't know, 8 to 10% of my monthly income there and leave it there. But I focus more on the present and living in the present. Life is very short, and
It
I
is.
also know people who were like yesterday my friends, and now they are not anymore. People who discover they have cancer, people who discovered they uh, will have their hand or leg amputated because there was a big infection in happening at the time. Things can happen. Life is very, very unpredictable, unfortunately, and we just need to adapt to it. So my plans are for short term instead of longer terms.
I think that's good. I think a lot of time we and I was guilty of this, that we live for the future. We think, right, I'll wait and I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this. And I thought, well, actually, like you say, it's if you want to travel, travel now. If you want to do something, do it now, because you, like you say, you just don't know in a year's time and in a day's time what's going to happen to you. To you. So the final thing I wanted to ask really was what brings you happiness and joy.
Whew. um, my the best part of my life right now is my child. He's 3 years old and 3 months, so he's the most important thing and always brings me joy, even if he always brings me mad to the point of madness. But yeah, I think that every day that I started with knowing that he's here with me and I have a life to build for him day by day. Um, and another thing that brings me joy is knowing that I can be free to express myself, or that I can take a day off whenever I want to because I don't have to tell a boss that I can't go to the office. And this is very important. Like I've been feeling really sick the past few days for this cold that I've been experiencing, and it felt so good. It always feels good to be able to just take a moment and breathe. And these are actually things that should make us happy, but we don't necessarily focus on because we think that happiness is the next best thing or the next best gig or uh, found in Maldives or whatever other part of the world. We just I try to focus on the simple things that actually bring me happiness. Although I do have to admit that sometimes I feel like, oh, today is such a bad day. I need to do something about it.
Yeah. It's really interesting to talk about your son. So my daughter turned 18 yesterday. It's her 18th birthday, and my son's 15. And I can remember them so well when they were 3. So as you say, the time goes. We never know what's going to happen. The time goes so quickly. I always thought between 3 and 4 was such a fabulous age because they haven't had too much influence from the outside world. They're all about you and your family and things, and they're so amazing. They seem to be so thrilled by anything they learn or experience. They'll see a caterpillar or a snail or anything. The amazement and joy in their mind is incredible. But they soon go to school and learn other things, other people. But yeah, it is such a fabulous thing. Yeah, watching them grow up and develop and things. So yeah, you've got a lot more joy ahead of you. I just want to say a huge thank you. You've been so informative. I wasn't sure what to expect, and you are incredibly intelligent. And I think it's a shame that you can't be, leader of the world. That would be a good aspiration. But no, thank you so much for your time. You've been so kind.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.